You're alone, no radio, no map. Unsure if the next sound you'll hear is the wind or an enemy's footsteps. On the ground, mud sticks to your boots. In the air, the smell of still fresh gunpowder. Outside, no one knows where you are. Inside, your body has already understood. It's fight, or be found dead. This is a silence that kills faster than bullets. The soldier had a name, but at that moment he was just another shadow lost behind enemy lines. The patrol had been ambushed hours earlier. Screams, explosions. Running in the chaos, he became separated from the group. And when the noise died down, he realized the truth. There was no one left, just him, and an entire territory hunting for his life. The first night was a slow-motion hell. The cold burned his skin, hunger tore at his stomach, and every noise in the woods seemed to herald the end. He knew he couldn't light a fire, couldn't call for help, couldn't even cough. Every second he imagined an enemy rifle aiming in the darkness. Sleep. Impossible. His brain was trapped between memories of the ambush and desperate calculations of how to survive. The next day, the sun brought light, but no peace. Now he could see further and confirm that there was no shelter, no signs of friendly life. Only ruins, broken trunks, the wreckage of burned vehicles, and bodies he avoided looking at. There, war had no heroes, only temporary survivors. Each step needed to be measured. Following an open path meant becoming a target. Going into the woods meant walking blindly, risking falling into traps. He decided to follow his instinct, and instinct told him, move little, be invisible. But invisibility comes at a high price. Thirst began to dominate the mind. Finding water became an obsession. He remembered the instructions from training. Never drink stagnant water, never trust what has not seen the source. But at that moment, even muddy puddles seemed tempting. Drinking could mean life, or dying of infection days later. The choice carried weight, and as he thought about water, food and shelter, another, greater fear crept in. What if no one was looking for him? What if, in the confusion of battle, command had already given him up for dead? The loneliness wasn't just physical, it was the feeling of being forgotten before he'd even disappeared. That was the first day, and many more would come. Days when the silence was heavier than any explosion. Days when hunger, cold, and paranoia blended into a single poison. Days when he learned that survival isn't about being strong, it's about not giving up when logic tells you to stop. Behind enemy lines, he wasn't just running from death, he was running from the idea that, to the world, he no longer existed. Before he was left alone in that silent hell, he was just another name on a long list of young men sent to a war they didn't even fully understand. In the barracks, they claimed to be fighting for freedom, for their country, for the safety of their families. But when their boots touched enemy soil, that rhetoric dissipated like smoke. There, every soldier quickly realized, wars aren't born from pretty phrases. They're born from dirty interests. This war, like so many others, didn't start with a gunshot. It began long before, with broken agreements, borders drawn by politicians, and promises that never materialized. A territory rich in oil, a strategic region for trade routes, and a past rife with ethnic and religious rivalries. Perfect cocktail for each side to justify its thirst for power as an act of protection. Officially, it was about sovereignty. Unofficially, it was about who would get the riches beneath the earth. While cameras showed leaders shaking hands at summits, fear was already spreading in the towns and cities near the border. Troops were moving in, checkpoints appeared out of nowhere. Families were fleeing before the first shot was fired. The war was already written, it was just waiting for the right moment to be signed in blood. In the months leading up to the offensive, units like his were deployed to areas of tension. Training intensified. They slept little, ate even less. The radio broadcast fiery speeches, but in the trenches, no one talked about politics. They talked about holy boots, homesickness, and letters that were slow to arrive. For them, war was a distant concept until the first airstrike slashed across the sky. The ambush that left him alone was no accident. It was part of a series of operations coordinated by the enemy, who knew every tree and rock in the terrain. The patrol fell prey, planned explosions, sniper fire, and within minutes, what was supposed to be a reconnaissance mission turned into a massacre. It became clear then, there was no longer a defined front. The war wasn't a line. It was a maze, and within it, every soldier was one mistake away from death. That's why he clung to the memory of before, to the training, to the brief conversations at camp, to the certainty that, somewhere, someone knew he was still alive. And as he trudged through the dense forest, each step was also a refusal. a refusal to be just another nameless body in a casualty report. And this is where you need to understand something. Wars aren't just about battles, they're about decisions made long before the first shot is fired, in rooms that smell of expensive coffee, far from the mud and blood. And when the soldier steps onto the field, he's already paying the price for those decisions. If this story has made you reflect on the real burden of those out there, fighting not only the enemy but also their own abandonment, then this is the time to support what we do here. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because telling these stories ensures that no one remains invisible, not even those whom war has tried to erase. The war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It continues in the price of bread, in the unfilled gas tank, in the hospital line that stops moving. The soldier walks alone behind enemy lines, but what happens to him already knocks on the door of those who live far away. A destroyed convoy on a distant highway becomes an empty shelf at the neighborhood market. A burning oil pipeline changes the mood of an entire city. Instability raises insurance prices, delays ships, closes factories, and scares away tourists. When a bridge collapses, it's not just concrete, it's jobs, medicine that doesn't arrive, classes cancelled for a generation. You feel this war without seeing the countryside. You feel it in the rising rent, the shorter lasting gas, the crowded bus. Meanwhile, the lost man calculates his steps and breathes softly so as not to be heard. He fights to live another day, and, unbeknownst to him, his struggle explains why the world sleeps worse today. He knows that an economic map is made of invisible lines, and that every cut line becomes a scar on the skin of those who worked on in makeshift shelters. Children learn to distinguish the sound of planes by the echoes off the walls, and draw clouds as if they were alarms. Mothers store documents in plastic bags because water seeps under the doors and erases certificates. Elderly people carry photos in medicine boxes because they've lost their folders, their homes, and lost track of time. On the other side of the border, some people mute their televisions to avoid hearing what they can't process. It's easier to pretend it's far away. But is it far away when a grain truck doesn't pass the checkpoint and bread becomes more expensive at the bakery down the street? Is it far away when cargo insurance doubles and grocery shipping costs rise? Distance comforts the mind, but it doesn't protect the wallet, nor does it cure the fear that returns every night. When night obscures the city, fear becomes a kind of language. It's understood by everyone, even those who pretend not to hear. The soldier, hidden in the forest, chews bitter roots to trick his stomach and drinks drops collected from the leaf. At the same time, a restaurant in his town reduces its menu because the supplier couldn't replenish it. It's no coincidence. It's a chain. A blocked port puts pressure on another. A suspended contract halts a production line. A bank avoids risk and tightens credit for merchants. The richest diversify. The poorest tighten their belts, yet another hole. Those who profit from chaos are patient and operate in silence. Those who suffer from it learn to count coins and choose what they can't buy. Who chose this? Who benefits? When the news disappears from the newspaper and the bill remains, the soldier doesn't have these answers. He only has the night, hunger, and the need to remain invisible. The market responds quickly, life responds late. Delay is always charged by those with the least margin for error. In bombed-out cities, there are markets without refrigerators and hospitals without electricity. In dark warehouses, volunteers mark boxes with crooked markers and tired eyes. They pile bandages, water, blankets, and the stubborn idea of a future. On this side, where the buildings remain intact, a fear grows that has no sirens. It's the fear of losing your job, of not paying the rent, of seeing your child come home from school wondering why everything is more expensive. War creates refugees, with suitcases, and refugees with bills. Those with wounded bodies seek shelter. Those with wounded budgets seek deadlines. And amidst this map of damage, the soldier rips the hem of his pants to cover his boots and avoid leaving marks. He learns to walk on rocks so as not to leave footprints in the mud. He advances from tree to tree as if praying in silence, because faith now means walking without making a sound. Politicians give long speeches. They talk about reconstruction, sovereignty, and firm measures in front of the cameras. Meanwhile, the soldier cut down by the forest bandages his ankle with his own shirt and counts steps to the next hiding place. He doesn't appear at press conferences, isn't in official photos, doesn't receive medals during prime time. His reward is a sip of clean water and 5 minutes without footsteps nearby. He counts seconds. They count votes. Who remembers this man's face when the news changes and the market opens early? Who sends stacks of protocols while someone bleeds without antibiotics? The distance between the catchphrase and the blood-soaked ground is vast. In that distance, humanity is often lost. This difference, measured in pain and seconds, rarely makes it into the report, but it determines who returns and who doesn't. There are numbers that matter because they hurt. A shelter that takes in 1,000 people and only has room for 300, a village with one well for 5,000, a road with 20 mines for every kilometer, but there are faces that matter even more. The girl who draws a house with 2 chimneys because she wants warmth and food. The old man who ties a string to her suitcase so she can recognize it on a crowded bus. The nurse who writes names on children's arms in case they get lost during an evacuation. And the soldier, still alive, silently repeating that he must hold on until dawn. He carries on out of stubbornness, out of love for those who wait, and out of fear of what will happen if he stops. Those who see from afar think it's courage. Those who are inside know it's pure survival. Tomorrow doesn't promise relief, it only promises another chance to persevere. Sometimes, that's all a human being needs to keep going. The soldier takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because every tree could hide a trigger. This choreography of fear explains a frightening future. If he's captured, he becomes a number. If he crosses, he becomes a ghost. And if war breaks out here, the rest of the map pays dearly. A miscalculation turns a local incident into a regional crisis. An off-course missile ignites neighboring countries. A closed border strangles grain and medicine corridors. Who can guarantee that a cyber-ratic on a plant won't turn off the lights in entire cities? Who can guarantee that a lost drone won't cross the wrong sky? Tomorrow is a minefield no one has fully mapped. The soldier feels it in his body, because every breath feels like an international negotiation. He holds his breath and negotiates with his own fate. And you, what would you negotiate if the next siren blared on your street? There are possible solutions, but none are painless. The first is diplomatic. Localized ceasefires, protected humanitarian corridors, prisoner exchanges, independent observers, coordinated pressure from those with influence and courage. None of this works without verification. None of this is sustainable without ensuring that those suffering receive water, food, and shelter. The second path is escalation. More weapons, more reactive alliances, more red lines drawn on maps that disregard lives. The third is paralysis. When the world grows accustomed to pain and treats war as a landscape, which one do you think wins when attention shifts? The soldier doesn't choose scenarios, he chooses where to step to avoid death, and the truth is simple. Without political will, diplomacy becomes rhetoric. Without diplomacy, escalation becomes routine. Without a routine of peace, paralysis becomes normal. Risk doesn't just reside on the ground. It resides in the economy, in mental health, in the erosion of trust. Countries divided by fragmented narratives weaken institutions. Disinformation becomes cheap fuel. Nervous markets halt investments that could generate jobs and rebuild bridges. More vulnerable power grids increase the chance of blackouts. Hospitals, overwhelmed by the wounded, leave the sick untreated. Schools ravaged by fear and lack of resources create a generation without classes and without a future. Who profits from this emptiness? The soldier, hidden, understands that war first steals predictability. Without predictability, families don't plan, companies don't hire, dreams don't mature. Is it worth accepting this daily lottery? Is it worth waiting for the storm to pass on its own? Who holds the helm when everyone would rather argue about the color of the boat? There are also exit signs when someone decides to act. Small truces become precedents. Radio stations that exchange the names of the missing become bridges. Commissions that enter destroyed areas become the eyes of the world. Carefully designed sanctions avoid punishing those who no longer have anything to lose. Reintegration programs for combatants reduce the cycle of revenge. Justice that investigates war crimes with respect for the evidence prevents history from becoming a political weapon. A soldier, hearing distant voices on a clear night, realizes the sound isn't a patrol, it's a village. He decides to wait. If he lights a fire, he dies. If he advances without thinking, he dies. He chooses to observe. This choice is a lesson. Peace isn't born on impulse. Peace is born of cold, repeated choices, made when the body demands haste. Who is ready to choose what hurts now to avoid what destroys later? The next dawn, birds sing, again as if nothing had happened. For them, the world still works. For us, the illusion ends when we open the monthly bill. The soldier wraps a piece of cloth around his arm and continues on. He doesn't know if he'll find allies. He doesn't know if he'll see home again, but he knows his journey is a direct question to our future. Will we watch from afar until war normalizes barbarism? Will we demand serious agreements and real oversight? Will we fund life-saving aid now, not eternal promises? Tomorrow is just a stumble away. It treads slowly. We should too. What if it's with us next time? War ends on paper long before it ends in the flesh. A soldier walks with aching steps and silently asks if anyone will listen to his story when he leaves the forest. If he does, we watch from afar and call it conflict. He calls at night, we discuss maps and treaties. He counts sips of water. What this distance does to empathy. What the routine of tragedies does to courage. A man alone behind enemy lines is a mirror we don't want to face. It shows the true cost of comfortable choices. It shows the price of every omission. If an invisible body falls without witnesses, the world moves on as if nothing happened. But the truth is straightforward. Each life left behind paves the way for the next. What kind of future do we accept when we normalize the pain of others? The question burns, will we repeat history? Or will we accept that the pain of others compels us to act? If the answer wavers, look at the man who breathes so as not to be found and imagine his name. He survived this far because he learned to listen to the world in silence. The breaking leaf, the rolling stone, the drone cutting through the sky. Each signal is worth a life when a loud breath gives away his position. And we who live outside the forest, what signals do we ignore out of convenience? When hunger strikes next door, when the news disappears from the newspaper, when the monthly bill confirms that war has arrived, but no one wants to admit it, we are quick to change the channel. We are slow to extend a hand. The soldier thinks of his family and carries on. He doesn't want a medal. He wants to return alive. His courage is simple, to remain still when instinct calls for a run. To save his voice for the right moment, to share what little he can to last another day. If he can act in fear, why do we accept inertia in comfort? Who taught us that compassion is detrimental? Who profits when we give up caring? If humanity is a muscle, it atrophies without use. Start on the street outside your home and listen to the cry for help that silence hides. His story weaves together everything we've seen so far. Interests at light matches over gas wells, scribbled borders that deny cultures, discourses that promise security while multiplying mourning. In the middle, ordinary people who only want peace. The soldier with worn boots and wounded hands became the symbol of a direct question. It's worth accepting a world where the pain of others doesn't move us. It's worth accepting that life goes on with cracked walls and weary eyes. He's alive today, but what about tomorrow? Who guarantees protection when the news changes? Who guarantees memory when interest calls? War doesn't need an audience to kill. It needs indifference to repeat itself without resistance. If each cycle is born of the same blindness, why not change the way we look? It starts with responsibility. Leaders who accept oversight. Institutions that protect those who denounce. Citizens who demand action instead of sentences. Inertia takes its toll now. The price of inaction falls on those who cannot choose. There are paths, and they begin with small, firm things. Aid that arrives before hunger. Water that arrives before fever. Protected corridors that operate without a show. Independent commissions that investigate abuses without fear. A dignified welcome for those forced to rebuild their lives. Mental health programs for those who returned carrying the night on their chest. Education that preserves memory so that lies don't rewrite the facts. Justice that punishes those who crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. Transparency so that promises become actions, not slogans. This has already worked in places that decided not to tire. It's slow, it's expensive, but it costs less than burying another name. Civil society builds bridges when governments stall. Volunteers maintain kitchens, radio stations, and support networks. Diasporas send medicine and knowledge. Technology maps risks and reunites families. A free press monitors those who want to cover their tracks. Companies that profited must finance reconstruction. Now and later, when dawn falls and the cold bites, the soldier understands that hope isn't a pretty word. It's an action. It's the next step taken with fear. It's the food shared in the shelter. It's the message sent to let people know someone has been found alive. It's the hand that pulls another person onto the bus before the explosion. It's the technician who restores power to a hospital. It's the teacher who reopens the classroom so the children can remember how to play. It's the doctor who works tirelessly. It's the neighbor who offers up their room. It's the donor who doesn't give up. It's the voter who demands it. It's the judge who protects evidence. Hope is a routine of care that repeats itself until it becomes culture. It's born from simple choices, not sharing lies, buying from those who help rebuild, supporting those who work hard, voting with memory, protecting those who denounce, listening to pain without turning it into a spectacle, keeping names so they don't become numbers. If each person holds a point of light, the dark road gains direction. This changes budgets and changes lives. The soldier takes a deep breath and chooses to walk another 10 meters. Maybe he'll find allies, maybe he'll find nothing. But he keeps going because someone hopes, because someone believes, because someone hasn't given up, and so do we. We'll keep going too. We'll turn compassion into action. We'll demand serious agreements and protection for those in need. We'll call war by its name and refuse to let it become a stage. If we've learned anything here, it's straightforward. Alone, a man can survive for a few days. Together, a people can prevent a war from devouring generations. When he finally sees a friendly handkerchief, the story doesn't end. It begins again, in the tiring work of rebuilding and remembering. If you close your eyes now, silence wins again. The question is simple. Will you leave someone alone behind enemy lines? Or will you build the bridge that returns them to the world? Choose to act and remember. Because the next story may require courage. There's one truth that doesn't change. Not everyone can survive alone.